more Coloradans get vaccinated, more people may be tempted to let their guard down, but the virus may still be a concern even after you're fully vaccinated. Dr. Dave Hnida is here to talk more about COVID and vaccines. And Dr. Dave, once people have gotten their 2 shots, do they still need to follow the CDC's exposure guidelines, and do they still need to get tested?
Well, even if you are fully vaccinated and you become ill, we certainly would recommend testing. And this simply is based on the numbers. When you take a look at the vaccines and you take a look at the so-called efficacy rate means your protection. In essence, we're looking at a number that is about 94%. And so what that means is if you take 100 people, 94% of them are really pretty much fully protected and will not get COVID. But 6% are at risk for developing disease. And so therefore, are you in that 6% if you are fully vaccinated and become ill? That is why we do recommend testing. And now that we're doing more and more testing and as well as vaccinations, we are noticing that there are some people who are testing positive even after being fully vaccinated in several states around the country. So it is a concern. And so we totally just can't let down our guard and say, well, I'm fully vaccinated, I can do whatever I wish. I think the other point to keep in mind here, even if you are not fully vaccinated, but you've had COVID and you think that you have protection after having a natural COVID infection, we don't know about your natural immunity. So in that particular situation, testing is also advocated if you wind up becoming ill. So really the trifecta here is testing, testing, and testing. We're going to continue testing, even though vaccines are showing to be very safe and very effective.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard a lot of people say, well, I'm vaccinated, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. So great information. Rutgers University says students must be vaccinated in order to return to campus. I know here in Colorado, CSU is still discussing whether it will require vaccines, while a lot of other colleges told us they don't plan to require it. So why might it be a good idea to make the shot mandatory?
Well, you know, I think there are several reasons that you really need to consider when you take a look at mandatory vaccinations against COVID in college. I think that, you know, first off, college students don't have, you know, this superhuman immunity against COVID, even though the tendency is perhaps for that age group to have less severe disease. If they do become infected, there's no question we still see severe disease in that age group. And even if the illness is mild or even asymptomatic, younger people are more likely to become long haulers. So there is the personal concern there. And then you take a look at the fact that if college students are not vaccinated, there is the risk of them bringing COVID out into the community off campus, as well as bringing it home to their families. And so I think vaccination really is a key to getting us a little bit closer to herd immunity. And that really, obviously, we think that's vital as our goal. And so you might say to yourself, well, is it legal to make COVID vaccine mandatory? It certainly is in a college and university setting. Right now, most places do require vaccinations for MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella, as well as vaccination against meningitis. So it is certainly not unheard of. So at this point, everybody's saying, well, you know, we recommend it strongly that you be vaccinated. But if there are some outbreaks on campus or within a region, mandatory may be the case.
Interesting. And it seems like every week we learn more about side effects people are having from the coronavirus vaccines, and there are some very weird ones. What are some of the strangest side effects you've heard of?
Well, you know, we all know about the usual ones, right? A sore arm and some aches and pains and fatigue and so forth. And those are very usual. Fortunately, severe side effects are very, very uncommon. Maybe 0.2% out of all the millions of vaccines that have been given. So incredibly safe. But what's coming out of this is, once again, more and more people wind up becoming vaccinated, we're seeing a pattern of some really weird side effects and, things that we can explain, but yet can't predict who's going to get it and so forth. But they include things like there's something called Moderna arm, which actually should be called COVID arm. Basically, was first seen in folks who received the Moderna vaccine, but actually it's now across the board with all the vaccine. And what happens here is about 5-7 days after you are vaccinated, you get this rash, and it can go down your whole arm in the arm you were vaccinated in. It's an itchy rash, and you think that, oh my gosh, what is going on here? And it really is just a delayed reaction from your immune system, and it is something that clears up on its own within 5-7 days. Usually doesn't require treatment. The other thing is something called nickel mouth or metal mouth. People literally within a couple of minutes of getting the vaccines to a day or so after getting the vaccine just taste like they've got a bunch of coins in their mouth, a really metallic taste. And it is something that can make food not taste good, make even beverages not taste very good. And we think that is the immune system doing something there. But I've got to say, it's not just unique to COVID vaccinations. It is seen in other types of vaccines and immunizations, as well as even antibiotics. And then there's this weird dream thing that's going on here. And for some reason, there seems to be some, prevalence of outer space dreams. We think that somehow, in some people, the COVID vaccine triggers off this big immune response, and it somehow interferes with sleep cycles, particularly REM sleep when you dream. And so there have been reports of people who are, taking off and doing like these Back to the Future scenarios with hovercraft and hover cars and flying to the moon, planting the flag on the moon, even somebody going out and, taking Abraham Lincoln to get a Big Mac and having the staff wanting him to autograph the bills they paid with. So, just really unusual things that we think really have something to do with how the immune response is to the vaccine. They're temporary, not a really big deal. One other thing I really should mention as well, people who have had filler injections, for example, for lips, they can have a reaction where they wind up getting swelling in the time after the vaccine. So just another thing to think about. I think bottom line, if you're having anything weird going on, the most important thing to know is that you're not alone, and they generally are not of any great concern. But certainly if you do have something that is unusual and you are worried about it, certainly by all means, always talk to your doctor and get a little bit more information.
I'm going to have to start asking people about those weird ones like the space dreams. I haven't heard of that one before.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Dave, and we'll talk to you again next Monday at 11 a.m. to get more of those coronavirus and vaccine questions answered. We'll be right back.